Welcome to Vantage Aditya. There is a question that doesn't walk into your mind. It infiltrates it. It doesn't shout. It whispers with such precision that you feel it echo inside your chest before you even understand why. It doesn't warn you. It waits in the dimmest corners of your thoughts until the moment your guard drops. That question is unsettlingly simple. Are you paranoid? Because paranoia rarely attacks in daylight. It prefers the quiet hours, the soft moments, the tiny cracks in routine where your mind has just enough space to wander. It begins with something so harmless, so ordinary, that you don't recognize the danger. A message not answered yet, a tone that sounded slightly different, a silence that lasted longer than usual, a look that lingered for a second too long. And suddenly, before you can breathe, that single moment becomes the seed of 100 doubts. You message someone you care about, and they don't reply. That is reality. But your mind, instead of waiting, begins constructing alternate timelines. It reminds you of that brief disagreement from last week, and it stitches that memory into the present. It magnifies a simple pause into a threat. You find yourself staring at your phone, rereading conversations, analyzing punctuation, tone, timing, as if the smallest detail contains the truth you fear. Then the phone buzzes, and you hear, "Sorry, I was caught up," and every dark scenario vanishes, proving how effortlessly your mind can imprison you inside fears that never existed. The same spiral consumes your professional life. Your manager says, "Let's discuss tomorrow," and instead of assuming it's about a project update or a normal check-in, your brain rewinds months of work, searching for missteps. A tiny error you made 3 weeks ago suddenly feels like a career-ending catastrophe. A harmless comment from a colleague suddenly feels targeted. You feel your chest tighten as you imagine an entire fallout, a fallout that tomorrow proves never existed. The conversation turns out to be routine, quick, almost insignificant. Yet your mind had lived through the consequences of a disaster it created itself. Your body becomes another battlefield. A minor ache becomes a warning. A random flutter becomes a threat. You lie in bed analyzing sensations that never worried you before. You open your phone, search symptoms, and within minutes convince yourself something irreversible is happening. Your breaths shorten not because something is wrong, but because your fear is rewriting your biology in real time. Then a doctor calmly tells you your vitals are perfect, and you realize nothing was attacking your body, only your mind. And money, even your finances, become a source of imagined danger. You check your bank account again, even though you checked it moments ago. You look at the same numbers, but they feel different every time, because paranoia distorts them. A small, unexpected bill feels like an omen. A temporary delay feels like collapse. A normal market dip becomes a prophecy of ruin. You begin planning for disasters that have no connection to your reality, while your actual financial situation remains completely stable. That is the real cruelty of paranoia. It does not need evidence, it only needs imagination. It uses your intelligence to create illusions. It uses your memory to fuel fear. It uses your sensitivity to amplify danger. Your greatest strengths become your greatest vulnerabilities the moment your mind begins filling empty spaces with shadows instead of facts. So how do you break free from a trap built entirely inside your head? First, slow the story down. Paranoia survives through speed. It thrives in the rapid, breathless leap from "something happened" to "something is wrong." Your thoughts sprint so fast, they outrun logic. But the moment you interrupt that sprint, when you breathe, when you ground yourself, when you disrupt the pace, the story loses power. A delayed response becomes a delayed response, not a betrayal. A silence becomes silence, not a signal. Your mind regains ownership the moment you slow it down. Second, separate fear from fact. Most of your fears feel real because your mind narrates them with such detail. But when you isolate what actually happened, not what you interpreted, not what you assumed, not what you imagined, you see how thin the evidence actually is. You remind yourself that the last 100 times your mind predicted disaster, life proved otherwise. Fear is loud, but facts are steady. And steadiness is what paranoia cannot survive. Third, remove the unknowns that trigger you. Uncertainty is the oxygen of paranoia. The more blank spaces your mind sees, the more stories it writes. So you fill the blanks with clarity, ask instead of assuming, communicate instead of spiraling, verify instead of Googling symptoms into terror, plan instead of fearing financial collapse. When your next step is defined, your mind stops inventing 1,000 imaginary ones. Fourth, remove the noise that distorts your perception. Information overload creates danger where none exists. Scrolling through negativity, comparison, crisis headlines, it tricks your brain into believing the world is far darker than it is. Sometimes your paranoia isn't your mind, it's the environment poisoning your mind. When the noise decreases, fear loses its fuel. Fifth, stop trying to predict everything. The more you try to foresee every possibility, the more your mind begins manufacturing possibilities just to feel prepared. Certainty is a myth, and the more tightly you try to hold it, the more paranoid you become. Let the uncontrollable be uncontrollable. Not everything deserves a future scenario. Sixth, draw a psychological boundary. A line that says, if I don't have evidence, I won't believe the story my fear is telling me. Not because you refuse to face reality, but because you refuse to face imaginary pain the way it is real. Your mind needs discipline the same way your life needs boundaries. Because paranoia is not insanity. It's overprotection. It's your mind trying to shield you from danger, but doing it so aggressively that it becomes the danger itself. The real question is not whether you're paranoid. The real question is how much of your life are you allowing fear to control, even when fear has nothing to stand on. And if this made you pause, if this made you see your own mind more clearly, if this made you realize how often the enemy is imaginary, then stay here. There's more to learn, more to understand, and more to confront. Subscribe to Vantage Aditya.